Hello and welcome to Monday Special, the digital edition. I'm Janet Mbogwa. Now, the High Court has nullified 10 sections of the controversial Security Laws Amendment Act on the grounds that they are unconstitutional. The sections that touch on media freedom and the rights of suspects, among others, were thrown out following a petition by the opposition CORD and a human rights lobby which argued that they trample on the rights of Kenyans. The court's decision is a significant blow to the president, who marshaled MPs to pass the law and trumpeted it as a key plank of the government's war against terror.
The controversial security bill and its consequent signing into law by President Uhuru Kenyatta was the subject of the ruling by the 5-judge bench of the High Court after a petition was filed by CORD. Section by section, the judges made their verdict known on the controversial aspects of the law, and in their ruling, 10 sections of the Security Act were found to be unconstitutional.
In the fight against terrorism, there is absolute need to balance the right to information with the constitutional duty to ensure that terrorists do not use media reports to achieve their deadly ends. The state has to be innovative in fighting terrorists, but within the framework of the Constitution and particularly the Bill of Rights.
The judges nullified Section 12 of the Act, which violates freedom of expression by, among other things, penalizing journalists for publishing or broadcasting information prejudicial to investigations or security operations without the authority of the police.
The media must also be careful not to give solace and comfort to terrorists by publication of images that may be taken to glorify and give impetus to acts of terrorism.
It was basically targeting journalists and the media as a whole. And secondly, it was also targeting the progressive forces within the political class. So I think this is a big day for the media. I think the media should be celebrating.
The court also ruled as unconstitutional section that violates the right of suspects to be informed in advance of the evidence against them, the right to remain silent, as well as the right to be released on bond. Section 95, which created the National Police Service Board, was also found unconstitutional, and the government has already declared its intention to appeal.
They were looking for a way where once arrested, you're as good as convicted. And I think the judges have come out strongly in defense of the right to fair trial, which is a non-derogable right.
We want to tell them, let them come along, we are ready for them, and we'll meet them in the next court.
An attempt by the government to stay the orders of the court, which in essence would have provided an opportunity to implement the law, flopped. The nullification of these sections presents a significant win for CORD, which accuses President Uhuru Kenyatta of returning the country to the dark days of suppression of dissent.
Members of the National Assembly are headed to the Court of Appeal to contest last Friday's High Court ruling declaring the Constituency Development Act 2013 unconstitutional. The lawmakers are also planning to engineer constitutional amendments to entrench the multi-billion shilling kitty in the Constitution. But the civil society's consortium that challenged the constitutionality of CDF insists that MPs have no option but to respect the ruling that gave MPs 12 months to suitably amend the act.
Members of Parliament seem to have temporarily shelved their political differences to confront a perceived common enemy. Last Friday's High Court ruling that declared the Constituency Development Act unconstitutional and invalid, though Judges Isaac Lenaola Mumbingugi and David Majanja suspended the act's invalidity for 12 months. Its consequence is that members of Parliament have lost control of the over 30 billion shillings disbursed annually.
We believe in due process of the law, and we shall appeal the ruling of the High Court.
But even as the lawmakers prepare for a fresh legal showdown at the Court of Appeal, the civil societies group that challenge the constitutionality of the CDF Act insists that members of Parliament are fighting a lost cause.
If the appeal will be there, because an appeal is not a one-sided show. The very resistance or the very able submissions that were put at the High Court would still be put at the Court of Appeal.
The MPs are also planning to amend the Constitution to entrench the CDF kitty in the country's supreme law, but such amendments must be sanctioned by Kenyans through a referendum.
CDF does not belong to members of Parliament. CDF belongs to the people of Kenya.
If, for example, you amend the Constitution so that you entrench CDF in the Constitution, you will definitely alter the doctrine of separation of powers, in that the Constitution will be saying that now a member of parliament can play the role of policy formulation, the role of legislation, and oversight at the same time, which the current Constitution does not allow.
In line with the High Court ruling, all devolved funds, including CDF, must be channeled through the county governments and managed by the county executive headed by the governors.
Do you know why there are more than 1,000 teachers today who don't want to go back to Northeastern? And 10 years ago, there was no need for such teachers to go to Northeastern. It is because of what CDF has done in Northeastern. So that is because of CDF. The schools which have been built, generated by CDF.
You cannot tie development to emotions. That CDF has been doing a lot of good work, it has done A, B, C, D. If it has been doing it in the wrong, under the wrong law, the CDF Act 2013, it is wrong.
The Constituency's Development Fund was established in 2003, and so far over 150 billion shillings has been disbursed to the constituencies. Francis Gashuri, Monday Special, online edition.
At least 1.6 million Kenyans are facing an acute food shortage. Cabinet Secretary for Devolution and Planning Anwai Goro is attributing the situation to poor rainfall and crop failure. Counties in arid and semi-arid areas are hardest hit, as Patrick Igunza now tells us.
About a fortnight ago, Citizen Television warned of looming food security threats arising from crop failure. And now the government has confirmed that farmers in Tharaka Nithi, parts of Meru, Kitui and Makueni counties will indeed lose half of their expected harvest.
In marginal areas, poor rainfall during the critical stage of crop development caused over 50% of the crop failure.
A situation that's rendering 1.63 million Kenyans food insecure and in need of assistance over the next 6 months.
There are varying degrees of drought stress in the ASAL counties, but emergency conditions have not yet been reached, largely due to the interventions from the national government and other stakeholders.
Most affected areas include Mandera, Garissa, Isiolo, Wajir and parts of Tana River counties, which recorded extremely poor rainfall. Stop-gap measures now include the continuation of relief food distribution, cash transfers and supply of subsidized maize through government silos.
The Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries will ensure that all NCPB stores in ASAL areas are stocked with maize, and they have confirmed that as of today, all the NCPB stores in the ASAL areas have been stocked with maize.
Situation is further compounded by water shortage and emergence of unknown animal diseases. Patrick Igunza, Monday Special, the digital edition.
A woman accused of killing 3 children in Korogosho slums last week will be detained in hospital for 1 month awaiting a mental examination. The Nairobi Principal Magistrates Court today heard that the doctors at Mathare National and Referral Hospital require 30 days to conduct medical examinations and establish whether Catherine Muthoni is fit to stand trial. In the case that shocked the nation, the 20-year-old mother is accused of killing her son before turning on 2 other children. Principal Magistrate Eunice Nyotu ordered that the case be mentioned on the 23rd of March. Now, parents are an anxious lot after Education Cabinet Secretary Jacob Kaimenyi released new guidelines aimed at capping high secondary school fees. Uncertainty reigns as to what course of action school heads will decide upon after several parents paid more than the amount stipulated in the new guidelines.
It came as a breath of fresh air when the government released secondary school fee guidelines aimed at stopping schools from raising school fees beyond the reach of many. According to the guidelines, secondary boarding schools should charge 53,553 shillings annually, an amount spread across the 3 school terms, with the government paying 12,870 shillings per student as a subsidy.
This takes cognizance of the fact that teacher redistribution, as mentioned earlier on, and employment, rationalization of non-teaching staff, as was mentioned earlier on, merger of uneconomical schools and implementation of proposed subsidies are yet to be effected. You know, this is something which will be done later. Eh? So you have to take factor that.
It is a directive which, once implemented, would bring relief especially to parents with children in national schools, which on average charge over 80,000 shillings. At Lenana High School, for example, at the beginning of the year, parents were required to pay just under 90,000 shillings, about 35,000 shillings more than the sum stipulated by the government. While Miranda High School gave a fee structure of just over 87,000 shillings. At Aquinas High School, parents paid about 82,000 shillings at the beginning of the term, an amount similar to that levied by Dagoretti High School. However, in an interesting twist, it emerged that Pangani Girls High School, a school that has performed well through the years, charged students just 43,400 shillings each, an amount far beneath that charged by other schools, the thought of a refund now welcomed by parents. But not so fast. By Monday morning, many public secondary schools had not communicated the way forward. Several parents we spoke to expressed their eagerness to find out whether the new guidelines would come into play and what that would mean for those who had already paid the fees in full.
Irate farmers today blockaded the Nairobi-Nakuru highway for over 4 hours over the controversial Kinangop wind project worth 13 billion shillings. The farmers who fear the project will displace them started the protest when engineers arrived to erect wind turbines. One house and a vehicle were burnt down as the farmers engaged police in running battles, leading to a transport crisis and closure of businesses. 2 women and a boy were reportedly taken to a private hospital with gunshot wounds. The farmers claim that some individuals with the backing of a local politician had signed an agreement with the investor without regard to the social impact it would have on residents. Speaking on phone, the leader of the majority in Nakuru County, Samuel Waithuku, said the farmers' pleas to the government had been ignored and had accused some politicians of benefiting from the project. Thousands of Somalis in America and the United Kingdom are increasingly finding it hard to send money home because banks who provide the vital lifeline are closing links with Somalia. The Merchants Bank of California, which handled between 60 to 80% of remittances from Somali nationals living in the U.S., is the latest bank to stop facilitating remittance services. Virtually all major U.S. banks have ended remittance services to Somalia over the last few years because of regulations that hold banks responsible if they transfer funds to terrorist groups. Some 40% of Somalis rely on remittances for daily needs such as food, medicine, and school fees. This comes against the backdrop of a fresh threat issued by Al-Shabaab to carry out Westgate-style attacks in malls in the U.S., UK, and Canada. U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Johnson told CNN that the threat was a part of a new phase of terrorism in which attacks would increasingly come from independent actors in their homelands. More than 60 people died during the Westgate siege in September 2013. Many thanks for watching Monday's special, the digital edition. I'm Janet Mbogwa. Do have a good night.